Okay, we're going to look at quite an interesting approach to using Photo's focus merge feature. Now, typically you would use this to merge together images with different focal distances for a greater depth of field. But what we can do instead is, if we just look here, I've got some sample images that are bracketed exposures. So typically you would HDR merge these for greater latitude, but instead we're going to drop them into the focus merge. So I'll just move back across here and go to File, New Focus Merge. And then I'll add my images. So let's go to the St. Paul's set of bracketed exposures, click OK, and wait while Photo aligns and then focus merges the images. Now, just a bit of background behind the principle of this. Focus merging is very similar to HDR merging in that it basically picks the most detailed pixels for each area once it's aligned the images. The difference is that it doesn't blend multiple pixels together like HDR merging, so you don't end up with the extra precision. In HDR it merges to 32-bit unbounded, whereas with focus merging we stay, if I just move back to the View tool here, in whichever bit depth our source images were at. So the result in this case is a slightly tone-mapped looking composite. And you'll generally find your results may vary from image to image. It really depends on the source material. But for example, I could go ahead and add a curves adjustment. And generally speaking, I'll be able to push and pull the tones a bit more than I would with just one regular exposure. So one use is getting sort of pseudo HDR results from a bracketed set of images. Another really cool use is if I just move across to my images again. I've got a couple of examples here. If we just look at square architecture, we'll see it's a bracketed set of exposures of quite an angular, modern-looking building. And there's a lot of contrast, a lot of high contrast in this set of images. So let's dive back in, and I'll go to New Focus Merge and add the images. Let's go to Square Architecture, pick up those images, drop them in, click OK. And once again, Photo will align the source images and then merge them. Okay, so what we've resulted in is an almost sort of vectory, hyper-real looking composite result. And once again, if I just go in and add a curves adjustment and start to sort of push this around tonally, we've got a really stark, high contrast looking result here. And again, it looks kind of semi-tone mapped, like that local contrast look that's very popular with HDR tone mapping. But it does sort of lend a hyper-real look to the image. And again, I'll just close this down and I'll go for the other image that I had in the folder, which was a set of exposures of a very grim sort of 70s era building. And again, you can see we've got very clean lines and a high contrast between the building and the sky. So I'll just add all of these and click OK. All right, so again, we've got a very odd, almost hyper-real look to the image. We've got kind of a darkening going on up here and then a gradual lightening as we move across the building. So just to exaggerate this once again, if we use a curves adjustment and then just add a couple of nodes, again, we can exaggerate that look. And on top of this, I'll also add a black and white adjustment. And then we can play around with the color mix for the black and white adjustment. And just by the way it's merged these source image pixels together, it's lent an edge to what would otherwise be some very typical monochromatic imagery. So there we go. I just wanted to share with you a couple of creative ideas as a result of what happens when you start to experiment. So, for example, when we take focus merging, which is intended really for focus stacking with macro imagery, and we turn it on its head. I hope that's given you some ideas to try out, and if you have any questions or queries, please do ask on the Affinity forums, and don't forget to check out the other video tutorials. Thank you for watching.